And at 10, GLAMROCK FOXY. Speaking of not wanting to deal with additional lore, GLAMROCK FOXY would also add a lot of unnecessary amount of annoyance to the game. At this point, Roxy is basically the love child of Foxy and Bonnie, and even has a name that kind of reflects on the whole like meant to be Foxy thing, since Roxy is just a combination of Rock and Foxy. Like, it's also an actual name, but I figured I'd mention that it's basically a combination of the two words, and she plays guitar, and so there's a link to Bonnie. However, the main issue with this comes from the fact that Foxy is just, it's scarier than Bonnie. I know all you die-hard Bonnie stans are gonna come for me, and I get that Scott had nightmares about him, but honestly, there's just no contest between these two characters. Foxy is scarier than Bonnie, and that means that his GLAMROCK would end up being scarier as well, especially if you take the toy animatronics as an example. The GLAMROCks are very close design-wise to the toys, so keeping that in mind, the toy variant of Foxy is still scarier than Bonnie's. Case closed. And at 9, Roblox. I looked up GLAMROCK versions of characters, and somehow I kept getting loads of different Roblox versions of the FNAF animatronics, and this is goddamn terrifying for me. Why do you ask? Well, because it's Roblox. I don't like Roblox. The only good Roblox game is paintball, and that's it, okay? Anytime we talk about Roblox, I feel an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me, because ever since that list about like the worst things that people did on Roblox or something along those lines, I've seen the Roblox community as horrifically toxic and just something I can't really stand. Especially with the comments on like that one time I played Roblox on the channel and everyone got mad at me for just playing paintball, but like, that environment combined with FNAF, which is already the bane of my existence at this point, and you get some pretty horrifying experiences that I don't want to deal with. And at 8, FNAF 2020. These GLAMROCK animatronics are from the FNAF 2020 series of drawings from DeviantArt user Senior Artsy, who I believe we've seen on this channel before in some other fan versions videos. However, I don't want to call out one animatronic specifically, but rather the whole collection of GLAMROCK versions from this 2020 set, because while yes, these animatronics will mostly be in the game, with the exception of some like Bonnie, these color palettes and designs are much more sinister than their previous versions, especially Vanny and Freddy, since giving Freddy a panda face, I don't know why, but just for some reason makes me kinda scared of him, and I think it's because the rest of his body isn't a panda, and it's just his face, so it's like he's wearing a mask and gonna rob you or something. I don't know the psychology behind it, but I think we can all agree, especially that Vanny looks like she should not be playing in a kid's game. And at 7, GLAMROCK Bonnie. I think the freakiest part about GLAMROCK Bonnie is just the fact that they're not going to be in the game. So far as I know at least, the only mention of Bonnie will be a bowling alley that we probably aren't gonna get to use, but for the most part, like with the rest of these animatronics, the designs aren't scary. Well, aside from the Minecraft model. Like, what's with people and making Minecraft animations for FNAF characters? And like FNAF, I don't understand it. I'd also like it to be noted that instead of animations, I spelled animatronics when I was writing that list initially, and I also did it again while writing this line. That's how much FNAF has taken over my life. I can't write animation anymore. So I hope you people are f***ing happy. But either way, these versions, aside from one version from a Twitter user called Manute Art, aren't really all that menacing. But the idea that people are creating additional animatronics is scary enough for me, because I don't want to deal with the additional lore that would come from that, okay? And at 6, Withered GLAMROCK Freddy. I've said it before, Withered animatronics are probably some of the weirdest and creepiest animatronics there are. I personally find Withered Bonnie way creepier than Nightmare Bonnie, probably because of the whole lack of a face thing. But with the new GLAMROCK animatronics on their way in a month, it was only a matter of time before someone withered them. Searching Withered Chica only really gets you pictures of like Chica from the Broken teasers and the trailer, so instead I'm going with Withered GLAMROCK Freddy because these are creepy as hell. Every version of Withered GLAMROCK Freddy makes me concerned that we're climbing into his belly to pilot him like some really energy inefficient mech suit. Like, thinking about it, that's a really bad idea. This guy not only looks scary, but also made me realize the error of Gregory's ways, which makes him even worse. When we ultimately do get crushed at the end of this game, I'm calling it now so that when it does happen I can say I called it, this is how I imagine GLAMROCK Freddy looking. Or, if this is post FNAF 3 and the company has been ruined, maybe this is what the animatronics look like, except they're using those sound illusion discs to make us think otherwise. Halfway through in at number 5, GLAMROCK Puppet. Again, every time I make a list about discussing creepy animatronics, a freaking puppet always makes it on. That's mostly because the puppet is a freaky character to begin with, and I feel like the phone guy whenever I call the puppet creepy, but it is creepy. And the GLAMROCK Puppet is no exception. This character wasn't originated in the Furries Rage game like I figured it would be, but instead it's just like a separate design that no matter what just looks like it wants to bring me to the back of the pizza joint to show me how the pepperoni gets put on the pizza. And no, I don't mean literally. Yes, that was an allusion to something else. And not only does it come with its own creepy ass concept art, but it also comes with Minecraft skins, because of course it does. This is one of the weirdest versions of the puppet, not taking into account Scrap Puppet, Withered Puppet, or Reaper Puppet from Final Nights 3. This is like the fourth weirdest and scariest puppet, and there's nothing really scary about it. It feels wrong to me, and the whole pepperoni thing. And at 4, GLAMROCK plush. Okay, so technically these are official and licensed plushies, so they're not really fan-made, but there are other versions on Etsy that are actually fan-made, so there are some fan-made versions. And honestly, those are the ones that you should be getting, because look at these fucking things. Why are the GLAMROCK security breach plushies so funky looking? They look horrible. Like, this was actually so much of an issue that many people had with these plushies that it caused a bit of an uproar within the community when they were first revealed. Not only that, but because, you know, Funko has a history of just leaking everything for some reason, and they don't look like the other plushies that they've released before. Like, if you're gonna make real plushies, at least make them look the same as they did in the VR game, so that we can like actually really see them and hold them, because we've already seen them before. It's not that hard, guys, really. These security breach GLAMROCK plushes are some of the worst proportioned and most horrifying plushies I've seen. And I saw the one that Scott Lang gave to his daughter in Ant-Man, and the bloodthirsty minion my father gave to my sister. These are still the most horrific ones that I've seen, though, okay? If I had these, I would be scared for my life. Although, mentioning that, they are on my Amazon wish list, so if you guys want to... I'm just kidding, I don't have an Amazon wish list, I'm not a girl. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Blacklight GLAMROCKs. Some of the Blacklight versions of GLAMROCK animatronics are absolutely horrifying. While I'm not sure if the plushie versions are official products, the fan blender versions for the characters are freaking nuts. Chica with blue skin is not only off-putting, but actually haunting. Same with a yellow Roxy. These are like if the GLAMROCK animatronics were Pokemon, and then like these were the shiny versions of them. So far, the only Blacklight animatronics that we know of are the ones from Help Wanted that only really appeared in the animatronic maintenance minigames in Blacklight mode, but that were never used again and that we don't really get to see. It's terrifying to think about the lore implications as well. Like if this place turns off the light at night, but then turns on like a black light or something, like how do they change color? How are they not just neon whatever their color is? Because these peeps are colorful as hell. So why not just glow your own damn colors? See, my head is starting to hurt even just thinking about these things. Just please, keep them away from me. And ultimately, in at number 2, Nightmare GLAMROCKs. Nightmare animatronics are designed to be the scariest versions of their respective animatronics, and that's why there are so many fan-made versions, because while elements like rugged exosuits and stomach mouths are common, you can really just head anywhere, same with scrap versions. However, these Nightmare versions are something else. Considering their original pristine appearance in the trailers and promo images, well, with the exception of Chica, there is a stark contrast between the two versions. They seem to be just the ultimate nightmare aesthetic going on with these characters specifically. I don't know why these animatronics specifically make me think that way, because maybe it's because like GLAMROCK Chica is my babe, but now she's not, but like even still. GLAMROCK Bonnie isn't even a thing yet, but their Nightmare GLAMROCK version is scarier than their normal Nightmare version. Stay away from these, don't look them up, although you've already seen them because it's in the edit. So I'm sorry. And finally, in at number 1, Scrap GLAMROCK animatronics. With Security Breach releasing in less than a month, we had to include a group of animatronics as scrapped versions on this list. And honestly, it's actually a good idea, considering how Chica in that promotional image seems pretty scrapped already. They really wouldn't have to do much to make that work out. However, the versions that I've actually seen are scarily horrific in a way that makes me concerned if they'll be in the real game. I don't think these would be in the game, but based on my old theory that I had about how these characters are kind of acting like zombies and like eating animatronic, or I guess not animatronic, but like other robotic parts, this look just makes me feel too right. Especially when we see in the trailer Chica getting progressively more destroyed. I feel like this might actually end up being a thing. These animatronics being made into scrap animatronics are honestly some of the freakiest custom scrap versions that I've seen. This is some freaky scrap. I tried to stay away from anything like that was like too pristine I guess. Because like what I used to do in previous alternate fan version videos was just look up adjectives. Like if it was like scary nightmare and like fan versions, I would just look up like withered nightmare, something else nightmare. I would just add that. I would just add adjectives to Nightmare's name. So I tried to avoid that this time, but scrap and nightmare are always a classic way to go, okay? If there's gonna be a Halloween update for this game though, Scott, or I guess Steel Wool at this point, you need to add these. That would be fun. And at 10, Shadow Spring Bonnie. Shadow Spring Bonnie is one of the two primary antagonists of Final Nights 2. He is also one of the final animatronics of the game. Shadow Spring Bonnie resembles Springtrap, as is to be expected when mentioning Springlock suits. Similar to Springtrap, he lacks the suit on his feet and has a majority of his right ear missing. Overall, he has rips, but is not missing any limbs or parts at all, which is a stark contrast to the burnt animatronics in the first 4 nights of this game. His face glows white, which is notable when he's in the hallway, but also gives him a more sinister appearance that pushes the something supernatural idea that most of the Shadow animatronics have, like Shadow Bonnie from FNAF AR. Shadow Spring Bonnie takes the roles of Burnt Freddy and Burnt Foxy on night 5. He is very fast, so the player must seal the vent quickly or else they'll get jump scared, and he also may appear in the hallway. However, you should never use your flashlight, otherwise you'll get insta-killed. Also, inspect his face when he appears there, because if he's twitching, you need to close the door, and then a rattling sound will let you know when he's left. The fact that you need to look at his face closely to see if you're in danger is kinda terrifying, especially when most of what you need to do is based on fast reflexes, and if you're stuck staring at someone to see if they're twitching, you can't pay attention to what else is going on. And at 9, Withered Fredbear. Withered Fredbear from Final Nights 1, as you'd expect, is a withered version of Fredbear. However, there is only a head seen during this character's night appearance, as it will poke its head through the holes in the ceiling in the attic. You just need to shine your light at him to prevent him from jump scaring you. Other than that, he is more or less a toned down version of Nightmare Fredbear, but with less bulk as we can see in the extras for the first Final Nights game. His jump scare is also frightening, coming out of seemingly nowhere like most jump scares, but with it being only its head, it gives the illusion of some odd movement that sets me on edge. Like it's his head just coming straight at you or like at an angle, so like he's kind of like doing this or something. It's weird. And at 8, Burnt Chica. Burnt Chica appears in the second Final Nights game, Final Nights 2 Sins of the Father, and Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. The two versions are definitely different design-wise, but I'll be focusing on the model from Final Nights 2 for this number. Every time it says Final Nights, my body tries to say FNAF. Burnt Chica looks like Withered Chica, only that she is burnt completely this time. Her left leg below the knee is missing and forces her to hop around, kinda like a chicken. A majority of her right arm is missing, with only part of her upper arm remaining, and she still suffers from a missing left hand and a broken jaw, with the suit like having like her jaw kinda hanging, but most of it's also kinda missing. It's weird. Strangely, she also appears to be the only burnt animatronic who still has eyeballs, which are gray and featureless. The entire front of her torso appears to also be torn open, revealing a strange lack of an endoskeleton torso, which is odd to say the least. She seems to have endoskeleton at the joints, but that doesn't make sense because if the fire was hot enough to melt the endoskeleton, why did it only burn the casing? Why didn't it melt the endoskeleton at the joints? And at 7, Reaper Balloon Boy. Reaper Balloon Boy was introduced in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken before being brought back in Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined. However, his Final Nights 4 appearance is much worse, so I'll be focusing on that one for this number. Reaper Balloon Boy's body appears to be immense for a small animatronic. He has long, extending arms with blue and red striped sleeves, and has protruding fingers at the end of his hands. But like, obviously they're protruding because like, you know, they're coming out of his hand, but like they're more like stumpy. It's weird. He also has many red scratches all over his body, possibly resembling human cuts. In Final Nights 4, however, his appearance becomes much more disfigured and rough, with his face and fingers being stretched out even more, and sporting multiple sharp-looking blades on his propeller cap. Reaper Balloon Boy appears in Investigation 4 in Final Nights 4, and he, along with the other Reaper animatronics, try to attack Max Donovan in the hospital bedroom. If the player hears him laugh, they must go up to him and shine him with the flashlight to repel him. The scariest thing about this animatronic though is his museum description that reads, quote, "not related to Danny DeVito." And at 6, Burnt Freddy. Burnt Freddy, like Burnt Chica, appears in Final Nights 2 and 4, and is a burnt version of Withered Freddy. He's a rusty and badly burned bear with a top hat and bow tie with 2 buttons on his chest, because, you know, counting buttons is important for some reason. He has a large hole in the left side of his head, revealing parts of his endoskeleton head, I mean at least he has one, which in Family Guy would also mean something completely different. He also lacks eyes, a left arm, a right hand, and both feet, which makes him resort to crawling, which I have to be honest isn't the most efficient method of movement. Unless I'm drunk, in which case it becomes the only way that I can get around. In Final Nights 4, Burnt Freddy's texture looks more plastic though. His chin is fixed and he's able to walk around, and he can sorta kinda limp. Like me when I'm slightly less drunk. Actually, I can kick ass when I'm drunk. At least if I'm playing Blade and Sorcery and pretending to be Captain America. Did that on my personal channel. It was a fun video. Gave me an excuse to drink online. How are we doing in number 5? Reaper Puppet. Ah yes, my arch nemesis. The Reaper Puppet. If you didn't know, the Reaper Puppet was the first fan animatronic ever featured on this channel, in the top 10 scary FNAF animatronics list around a year ago. The first FNAF video by me on this channel was on January 29th, 2020. Can you believe that? It's only been like a year and a half, and we already have over 200 FNAF videos. And the video I'm talking about came out a month later, on February 24th, 2020. So I have a long history with this character. The Reaper Puppet, along with Shadow Bonnie and the brother from Final Nights 1, are the only animatronics in the entire series to start off a night outside. Reaper Puppet appears to be the counterpart to the original series puppet, though it is only the Reaper Puppet's head that is similar to the core series puppet. The rest of his body is a dark shade of black. It has long stretching arms that are kind of like goo and has sharp fingers. He's like the Grim Reaper. The Reaper Puppet also has multiple tentacle-like legs, which is pretty unsettling to say the least. It can also be easily mistaken for a tree, and its legs look like roots and the shoulders look like branches. This thing is so creepy that I included it on a list that shouldn't have had any fan animatronics in it because I was so creeped out and I felt compelled to. Like how kids in Fazbear Frights are drawn to the restaurants. But you should see this thing try to climb over a balcony. It's horrifying. And at 4, Shadow Fredbear. Shadow Fredbear is the other primary antagonist from Final Nights 2 along with Shadow Spring Bonnie. An odd thing to note about this animatronic is that Shadow Fredbear is almost perfectly intact, only burnt black in color, which is a hard contrast to the burnt animatronics, who are absolutely destroyed. He has a few rips in his body and is missing a left hand. The area around his mouth also appears to be slightly torn, revealing a majority of his endoskeleton teeth, but everywhere else remains mostly intact. His teeth and eyes glow, which make him easier to see in the hallway, and also for some reason the right eye seems to float in its socket, which again only adds to the supernatural feel. But no other animatronic seems to share this design feature, so I don't know why they included it. He replaces Burnt Bonnie, the brother, and Burnt Chica on night 5, and may hide in the right vent, which results in it needing to be closed. Obviously. He may also appear in the hallway, making you have to use your flashlight when he's close, since closing your doors may actually get you killed, as well as shining your flashlight too early. His head may also appear in the brother's shack, which will be signified by a breathing noise, so if you hear that, you'll need to hit him with your flashlight in order to survive. That kind of sounds like a prophecy. I don't know why, I just kind of get the vibe of a prophecy, you know, a prophecy of death. And at 3, Glitch Balloon Boy. Glitch Balloon Boy, also known as GBB, is the secondary antagonist in Final Nights 2, and also appears on Night 5, alongside Shadow Spring Bonnie and Shadow Fredbear. GBB is the only glitched animatronic in the game. He has the shape of Balloon Boy, but he's kind of glowing and flashes 3 colors very quickly. He also seems to glitch out easily, hence its style and name. He is also the least withered animatronic in the game. The character also seems to nearly have a TV grain aesthetic to him, with certain screenshots showing horizontal lines that you'd get like if a TV didn't have service, you know, instead of like the static, it's like the staticky black and white lines. GBB also emits a distorted version of Balloon Boy's laugh, and he will go through the left vent. Seal it instantly if he appears in that vent, because if you do end up failing to seal it, he will not jump scare you like other animatronics, but rather he will appear in your office and laugh, slowly breaking all of your cameras one by one, including the vent cameras, which allows Shadow Fredbear and Shadow Spring Bonnie to basically kill you instantly. While not jump scaring the player, he is certainly a mischievous scamp, making him scarier than the other two, at least in my opinion. And ultimately in at number 2, Stage Bonnie. Stage Bonnie is an antagonist in Final Nights 4 4 Fates Entwined. He is the original Spring Bonnie from Fredbear's Family Diner, as well as the very first model of Bonnie. The name of Stage Bonnie comes from the museum level, which unlocks after beating Night 5, however it's just the Spring Bonnie from 1973. Stage Bonnie is a golden yellow animatronic rabbit that doubles as both animatronic and suit. He sports articulated ears that are able to bend, he also wears a purple bow tie like Fredbear, and also like Fredbear, Stage Bonnie wears white gloves and has green eyes. While not run down like the other animatronics, there's just something about this guy that makes him creepier than most of his other counterparts. I don't know if it's because seeing a yellow Bonnie repaired is weird since all the other versions have been run down, or if it's the pose or the posture or the fact that William used it to murder like 17 kids, but Stage Bonnie is still pretty damn creepy despite being the cleanest animatronic on this list. Finally, in at number 1, Reaper Spring Bonnie. Reaper Spring Bonnie, however, is the opposite of Stage Bonnie. This Reaper variant appears in Final Nights 3 and 4 and is an absolute monstrosity, but he is definitely more terrifying in Final Nights 4. He is 100% the scariest animatronic in the games. In essence, Reaper Spring Bonnie is a nightmare spring trap. He has sharp teeth and a very damaged and withered body. His suit is dark yellow in color, and he sports a big purple bow tie on his upper chest, and like the other Reaper in at 10, Dawnbreaker. Aside from being the reward for a Daedric side quest, Dawnbreaker was expected to be an antagonist in the now cancelled Dormitibus Remastered. Dawnbreaker appears to be a heavily damaged purple mangled animatronic, the design of which was based on Shadow Freddy from FNAF 2, and presumably on the purple animatronic Hoax character. By his design, he's very similar to the HAVOC animatronics. His torso is ripped and torn up, large tears exposing the endoskeleton underneath, several limbs with hooks instead of feet are sticking out of his torso and out of his head, making Dawnbreaker appear similar to a spider, and I think we all know how I feel about that. Any animatronic that looks like a spider needs to be put down and sent back to the depths of hell from whence it came. In at 9, Springlich. Springlich was a character in the Dormitibus beta. Not much was ever planned for him, and he was one of the 2 characters modeled by Golden Nexus, both of which didn't make the final cut. Springlich's body is actually turned the opposite direction to its head. This would have made it constantly walk backwards, which was actually going to be a part of its minigame. That way it was possible to make him stumble and fall, causing him to become stunned. They appear to be a Springlock victim, as they have what appears to be either blood vessels or muscles inside their suit, and they have a decaying head in their mask and only one eye. They have long strips of withering on their mask and their lower jaw is heavily worn down. Different sized holes cover the rest of their body, especially in their torso and their upper arms. And at 8, the HAVOC Puppet. He is responsible for the creation of every animatronic in the game aside from one. HAVOC Puppet is formed by a cracked and distorted version of the puppet's original mask, which is now missing its lower half. The head has a small hole placed right above where the mouth would be, and 2 white pinprick pupils on the inside of empty sockets, which presumably are pitch black. The lower missing half of the main mask features 7 black tentacle-like extensions, 3 at the back and 4 at the front, kinda like a weird mullet. The side 2 and the front are used as legs, while the other 2 at the front seem to be like arms, which is just all kinds of wrong. The back 3 tentacles also seem to be like tails. I don't know why those aren't the legs, but whatever. It also has a crack on the top of its head, and you know, it's wrong. Okay, it looks like a giant messed up spider, and like I said, we all know how I feel about spiders. I hate them. And at 7, Molten Evil. Molten Evil is basically the shadow body of Dormitibus. It was a Springlock victim, and it is heavily implied to be related to RWQFSFASXC. Molten Evil is a pure black animatronic rabbit that is melted. They look very similar to Toy Bonnie, and it's most likely meant to be Shadow Bonnie. Molten Evil looks close to what Toy Bonnie looks like, but with some key differences. He is entirely black, and appears to have a grimy looking texture to them. His eye sockets are filled with a white color and a white substance, which is most likely plasma. Get your mind out of the gutter, which is actually also seeping out from their eyes, and it's running down their face a la Crying Child, which hadn't actually been introduced yet, interestingly enough. All of his teeth are glowing a bright white, and so is his bow tie, and his bow tie, however, has melted slightly, making it lose its original shape. Don't all these animatronics just seem friendly to you? And at 6, HAVOC Freddy. HAVOC Freddy is a distorted manifestation accident, both from HAVOC Puppet, who attempted to make a physical body for the spirits in Purgatory from plasma. When alive, the spirit's name was Ted. Get it? Ted became Fred? Never mind. HAVOC Freddy bears a slight resemblance to his real counterpart, but for the most part looks very different. He mainly consists of a slightly dark brown color scheme, and he has a giant hole in the right side of his mask, revealing a large portion of his endoskeleton. His right eye hangs out of this hole by a few wires, consisting mainly of a black color with a red pupil. His left eye has a blue color to it, like his real counterpart. His eyebrows look rather large, with his right one just missing a small amount of itself, and his top hat appears to be just fine, though it may have some slight damage done to its base. A 2-segment long arm is connected to the left side of his head, with it wearing no suit on it, and the hand for the arm appears to be missing a finger segment, and it's also holding a microphone. HAVOC Freddy doesn't have a suit for his lower jaw, and his entire jaw is just hanging low, wobbling to and fro by just a couple wires, and the rest of his body is just destroyed, which makes it extremely unsettling. Halfway through it at number 5, the BOA. The BOA, otherwise known as the Box of Abominations, is a nickname that I gave my sister. Just kidding. It's an animatronic hybrid from the same game that makes us all beg for death. Haha, yeah. The main head for the BOA belongs to Toy Freddy. He has no ears connected to his head, and his top hat has a few holes in it, resulting in wires poking out. Toy Freddy has a small hole right above his right eye socket, and a slightly bigger hole on the right side of his head. He's missing his right eye, and his right eye socket has melted slightly. His remaining eye is pure white along with his iris. He has no eyelids, and neither do any of the other heads. Yeah, that's right, this one has multiple. Both his upper jaw and lower jaw have melted along with his cheeks. This has also caused his endoskeleton jaw to be revealed more, even when his jaw is closed. In at 4, Soul Cage. The Soul Cage is an animatronic from Dormitibus, and it resembles a lamp that has 4 heads of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. Basically, it's an animatronic based on the bad ending from FNAF 3. The Soul Cage is made up of some props from Fazbear's Fright. The base of the Soul Cage is Bonnie's torso, with Bonnie's head being connected to it. Chica's head is connected to the left side of the main torso by a metal rod, and on the right side of the main torso is Freddy's torso, which is being connected to the main torso by 2 metal rods. Freddy's torso is tilted to the side, making him stick out, and Freddy's head is connected to his torso as well, luckily. Foxy's head is connected to the main torso by a rather long metal rod, which is actually coming out of the back, which is weird, and Foxy's head is positioned right above Bonnie's head. Each head that the Soul Cage has contains a single light source in their left eye socket. Each head also has large sharp teeth in their jaw, because of course they do. They had to have something more, right? Like, it wasn't enough to just have 4 heads. You have to make them have razor sharp teeth too. They also have a grimy looking texture to them, which may be a reference to the fire at Fazbear's Fright, but can't be certain because I didn't design the character. Freddy, Bonnie, and Foxy also don't have their ears anymore, and there's 4 robotic legs because why the hell not? Getting close to the end, and at number 3, HAVOC Chica. Do I need to explain? HAVOC Chica, aka Maria, is a HAVOC animatronic that hails from the Dormitibus universe. She is a HAVOC version of Chica, obviously, and is a failed attempt by the HAVOC puppet to give her spirit a physical form. While having the same color scheme as Chica, the two look nothing alike, alright? Not at all. The mask that HAVOC Chica wears has a good amount of damage done to it. Her right eye socket has grown in size, arching upwards towards her feathers. The rest of her mask has small withering in a few places, mainly near her right eye socket and her forehead. She has no eyes at all, resulting in her being blind. Her jaw isn't directly connected to her head like Chica from FNAF 1, and instead her jaw looks more like her withered counterpart. Her jaw has withering on the sides of it and some towards the front. Her entire head is attached to a suitless limb segment, making her stick out in a way from her body. It's just grotesque and nauseating to look at. She looks like a chicken, like when they're like trying to get seeds. She looks like that. Just look at what they did to my baby. Look at how they massacred my girl, Chica! But ultimately, in at number 2, Golden Call. Golden Call is more or less like Springtrap design-wise. He's a spring-lock suit with a corpse inside of him, and he has become green due to his color rotting away. Half of Golden Call's left ear is bent, causing it to stick out in an angle. His other ear looks fairly intact, other than some slight withering on its sides. His black top hat also has some slight withering on it, mainly towards the base and sides, and he has one small hole above his right eye socket from some withering. Of course, it's withering, alright? It's withered. It's very withered, but it's not a withered animatronic. The hole also appears to be connected to his right eye socket, making it slightly bigger than normal. On the left side of his head, there's a larger hole, and he has a bit more withering on the sides of his head too, and another batch of some red substance is sticking to to this section of his head, which is most likely blood or flesh or something similar. Golden Call also has a set of endoskeleton eyes in his head that have red pupils, and the eyes of his corpse are hanging out of their eye sockets and appear to be blue, which is wonderful because that means I can relate. He has slight withering on his snout, his lower jaw has been slightly degraded on the edges, and then inside there's two large things, okay? What organs this could be are unknown, but his entire torso is also heavily worn down, and his pelvis has a single hole in the front that it reveals like some more blood vessels, because of course it does. It's just disgusting. Finally, in at number 1, Garvey. Garvey is the Dormitibus version of Springtrap. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist in Dormitibus. As a human, he was the man who killed the missing children. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Body, becoming Springtrap, and then was burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear's Fright Fire. He looks absolutely horrific. The suit on his limbs and body are heavily tattered and shredded, and his organic remains are far more visible than they were with Springtrap or Scrap Trap. His lower jaw is deformed and broken, which it actually disappears on at least one occasion, showing Garvey's corpse mouth and jaw. Garvey now has an unnatural, animalistic-like stance, walking on all 4 of his limbs. His limbs also appear to be snapped in multiple places, alluding to these limbs being bent in unnatural ways, and the fact that his left hand serves as a foot and his left foot serves as a hand. I don't want this anywhere near my life, okay? He is also much bigger than Springtrap or any other threat in the game, okay? He's absolutely terrifying and scarier than any of the animatronics in this game or any other fan game, hands down. And he was made before the Afton name reveal, so it's not even Afton. In at 10, the Purple Guy animatronic. The Purple Guy animatronic legend is an urban legend revolving around FNAF in early 2015. A YouTube video surfaced that reportedly showed a hidden animatronic reported to be the Purple Guy, who at the time, the only name we had for the main antagonist. The appearance of the purple animatronic was preceded by a phone ringing, because we thought that he was also the phone guy, and then after the phone rang, the purple animatronic would briefly flash on screen, slumped over against the wall in the office in a similar style to Golden Freddy. However, it was soon revealed that this was simply because the animatronic was simply a photoshopped image of Golden Freddy with a purple color and Chica's head. I think that it's pretty obvious that it was photoshopped, and I mean that, like, we've used that image in thumbnails a couple of times, but no character like this has ever showed up in any of the games. But nevertheless, I'd still like to see it appear in the movie as like an Easter egg or a reference, okay? Same thing for, in at number 9, Freddy. Feel like this one's kind of obvious, but I have to say it anyway. Freddy was the mascot when the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened up in 1983, and in 1987, he and the original animatronics had fallen into severe disrepair. That's when Freddy was replaced with his newer counterpart for the improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. You know, Toy Freddy. After that pizzeria closed, as well as the toy animatronics getting scrapped though, they refurbished the old animatronics for the new pizzeria, which was the old pizzeria, which is the one that we see in the first game. Yeah. That's FNAF. However, after the closure of that pizzeria, he and the other animatronics got dismantled by William Afton, the killer of the series. But Freddy is literally the title character, okay? Of not only the movie, but the series as well. And while he may not have originally been intended to move off the stage, he does now. He's the most iconic FNAF animatronic ever. He has like 15 variations on his design over the past 8 years since the series has been active. So yeah, I want to know, I expect to see Freddy on the big screen, and if he isn't there, I will riot at the local Chuck E. Cheese. In at 8, Fredbear. With the concept of a Mike screenplay, I think that everything relating to the major events in not just Michael's life, but the Aftons' lives as a whole would be essential to see, especially a moment as life-changing as the Bite of 83. So the Fredbear animatronic in non-nightmare form is a must in my eyes, but also not very likely unless it's like a flashback sequence. They're probably not going to worry about the events of the games, but this would probably just be an effort to confirm the main character as Mike and prove that Mike isn't Crying Child, but also as an Easter egg for fans that will hopefully have the 1983 date on the flashback. But then again, every 87 believer is going to say that they're different universes, so it doesn't count as confirmation. Either way, I think a Fredbear appearance is kind of mandatory, but I'm not in the movie, so who knows what they think is required. Scott, you should have put me in the movie. How many FNAF videos have I f***ing made at this point? 500? Yeah. God. And at 7, Buff Helpy. This meme, created by @Dominius on Twitter, Buff Helpy was made for the YouTuber Daco's FNAF meme reviews, since that was the primary content on his channel at the time. He made a joke in the video where he pretended to be terrified of it, and then people started sending him tons of memes about that one single image. It has since spread from there, leading to Buff Helpy even getting his own spin-off game. Yeah, he even has his own Urban Dictionary page that labels him as a traitor to his country who loves stalking the YouTuber Daco and somehow always makes it into Daco's FNAF meme reviews. Followed by the use of the term in Buff Helpy is best boy. Buff Helpy is not best boy, okay? And this entire thing was posted by a user called Buff Helpy Enthusiast. And you know what? Buff Helpy has also haunted me. I hadn't seen any of Daco's FNAF meme reviews, so luckily I was oblivious to this. However, people just started randomly sending it to me on Instagram, and then it kinda scared me from there. And while it may be haunting, at least a mention of it in the movie would be very much appreciated, like how Sonic was referenced in the Sonic movie. And it ain't Chucky. Now, while not canon in the FNAF universe, there is certainly no doubt that Chuck E. Cheese's was the inspiration for the FNAF series. And while yes, the comments about Chipper and Son's Lumberco characters looking like robots pushed Scott towards the idea, we've made a whole video about how FNAF and Chuck E. Cheese are the same thing. So, getting a Chuck E. Cheese reference or Easter egg in the movie would be absolutely amazing. Even if it's someone just like proposing or pitching a new character that just so happens to look a hell of a lot like Chucky, that's good enough for me. There just needs to be some form of reference to it. Or, if you're not going to do that, make a reference to one of the many FNAF fan games in the Fanverse initiative, okay? Make them at least slightly canon in the movie universe of the FNAF multiverse. Show us like a Candy's Burgers and Fries paper plate, or like an Ignited Freddy proposition, okay? I mean, you did it in Security Breach, why not make it into the movie? However, doing at number 5, Springtrap. Springtrap is also kind of a mandatory appearance in my mind, because after all, he's the main antagonist of the series. And while the story is about Mike, based on the games, the only version of William that could appear is Springtrap. If you think about it, Michael was a teen, or close to it, in 1983, meaning that by the time the first game comes around in 1993, he would probably be around 23 to 26. But at this point, William was also already Springtrap, since as we're going through the FNAF 3 minigames, we see Mango walking around, meaning that this takes place around FNAF 2, but shortly after, so that the toy animatronics could get scrapped. So unless this takes place while Mike is a teenager, which could make sense given the demographic of the FNAF fandom, the only real version of William that is at least part animatronic, since this list is the animatronics we want to see in the movie, would be Springtrap, since Scraptrap doesn't come until Michael's death in FNAF 6, and they wouldn't kill off the protagonist of the movie in the first movie, and Burntrap doesn't come until after Mike is actually dead. So yes, the only version of William that has robotic parts that could be in this movie would be Springtrap. Springtrap isn't a full animatronic, but you know what, it's my list. And at 4, Golden Freddy. Golden Freddy is a mysterious ghost-like entity who takes on the form of the yellow animatronic bear version of normal Freddy. Like I said, he has 15 different versions. He plays a prominent role in the FNAF series, although his origins are cryptic and unknown, but many speculate that Crying Child at least one point possessed the animatronic, which would be an easy confirmation to make in a movie about his brother. Or on the other hand, many also believe Golden Freddy to be possessed by Cassidy, and that Cassidy is also the vengeful spirit, aka the one you should not have killed. Although in my research, it's much more likely that Crying Child is the vengeful spirit, and Cassidy is the one who actually possesses Golden Freddy, since it makes for a better story, and in all honesty, okay, Cassidy doesn't really have any significance. I'm sorry. It's true though, okay. Cassidy is at least less significant than Crying Child. Actually, no, Cassidy has no meaning to the story at all, alright? The name reveal of Cassidy meant nothing to us. However, confirmation for any explanation or any sequence of events would be much appreciated. So needless to say, it would be great to see them, because it means that we might get something to help us figure this out properly. Maybe, unless the movie contradicts itself 10 minutes later, which I'm expecting. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, the puppet. The puppet is an animatronic puppet, obviously. That is a major antagonist, but also a good guy in the FNAF series. First appearing as the main antagonist of FNAF 2, but on later games showing its heroic side, it possibly serves as the prize vendor of the newly refurbished Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria in 1987, the one FNAF 2, which also is a new one, but then also ends up becoming the old one. Although it's implied that it was originally from Fredbear's Family Diner, and that's that's a whole other can of worms I am not going to talk about because hell no. After the pizzeria was only open for a few short weeks though, it was closed down, but the puppet, unlike the other toy animatronic were scrapped, possibly due to malfunctions, was not scrapped, later appearing in the new pizzeria from the first game as evidenced by the dream cutscenes, and appearing as Lefty in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, aka FNAF 6. Lefty was an animatronic intended to capture the puppet because Charlotte's father, Henry, knew that her soul possessed the animatronic. However, it's also widely believed that Charlotte was William's first victim, meaning that overall they have the most significance to the story. So definitely required if we're going to have a story based on William Afton's crime spree and how it affects his only living child, which is the whole concept for FNAF, so I'm guessing it's gonna happen. Penultimately, in at number 2, Foxy. Now while Foxy may be a fan favorite and one of the core animatronics, it's pretty much guaranteed that he'll be in the movie. Although while being in the core cast, there is another reason we need to see Foxy on the silver screen in the Mike story. Foxy bro. See, before we had seemingly confirmed the name of the older brother, since we were flip-flopping between whether Michael was the older brother or crying child's name, the only thing that we knew about the brother was that he enjoyed wearing the Foxy mask to scare crying child, seemingly also ripping the head off the stuffed version of the character, possibly due to jealousy. So we ended up nicknaming Michael Foxy Bro, mostly thanks to MatPat's suggestion. So I think that an animatronic that was highly associated with the character of Mike, or who at least we think Mike is, should absolutely be in the movie, and if not, I'm gonna be mad, alright? I wanna see a hook. And finally, in at number 1, Nightmares. I think that if this is really meant to be a horror movie, which it is, I mean it's being produced by Blumhouse after all, the company that made Paranormal Activity, the nightmares are basically a requirement to actually make this scary. Sorry, but the normal animatronics aren't really all that terrifying. Scariest part about those games is the sounds that appear with the animatronics, but the nightmares are truly terrifying, and one of the reasons I don't want to play FNAF 4 or the night terror levels of Help Wanted. It's why I didn't complete the game, because I would have had to play those. These things are just absolutely horrific and iconic within the series, especially since they're the reason there is a movie at all. As you well know, at this point, Scott was planning on ending the series after game 3, but the hate on the Springtrap jump scare made him make another game, and which was FNAF 4, and then he kept on going. If not for the nightmare animatronics and the Springtrap hate, there wouldn't be a FNAF movie, and I think that that deserves to be represented. Of course in a dream sequence, but still, it's worth it.